Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula 1, FormulaE, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here's your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Indeed, the gang is all here on this particular weekend. We appreciate you joining us. I am Steve West. That is Matt Nicholson. Over there is producer John Myers. We appreciate you joining us on this weekend. Coming up a little bit later on, got ourselves a guest, not in studio, by phone.
Yeah, by phone. Hour number 2 in the final segment, as you said. We've been oval track racing. We've been motocross racing on this show.
Sure.
Today we go with the straight liners.
All right.
Week 1 of 2.
That's right.
Remember, week 1 of 2.
As you're preparing to make a little trip.
Yes, trips being prepared to be made. This is why we're doing this. It's in preparations. But NHRA crewman and engine specialist Matt Shess from Lex June Racing will be joining us in hour number 2 to just go through how the life of an NHRA crewman is and how intense it can be on any given race weekend.
All right. Looking forward to that. Let's talk about last weekend real quick. Racing began across the pond, as they say, in London. Formula E, 2 days, 2 races. Saturday's race won by Eduardo Mortara. He started second, inherited the lead from Nick DeVries, rolls on to the win. Robin Frein second, Lucas deGrassi third. Then you got Andre Lauderer, Jake Dennis, Jean-Eric Verne, Stoffel Van Dorn, Oliver Rowland, Pascal Wehrlein, and Nick DeVries. Pole sitter, and then a bad day. Dropped all the way down to 10th. We're going to deal with the points standings after we talk about race 2. IndyCar stepped in. They ran their second race of the year on the Indy road course, and the first race of last weekend in Indy. It was the Indy NASCAR doubleheader day. Sometimes when you know you're a short timer on a team or an organization, it does one of two things. It either makes you go, I don't care anymore. What are you going to do? Fire me. Or it's going to make you work that much harder. In the case of Alexander Rossi, it appears to be that situation where it pushed him to work harder. Think about this. Alexander Rossi hadn't won a race in 3 years, not since 2019 at Road America. But Rossi's team kept him up near the front all day. He got the lead on lap 42, wouldn't let it go. Pulled away from second place. And by the way, nice run by the rookie Christian Lundgaard as the laps were winding down. But Rossi ends up winning by over 3.5 seconds. Lundgaard second, Will Power third, Scott McLaughlin fourth, then Joseph Newgarden, Renus VK. We'll talk about him more in IndyCar news. Graham Rahal, Scott Dixon, Felix Rosenquist, Alex Palou making up the top 10 there. Power with his third place finish, and Marcus Ericsson having really his worst day since before winning the Indy 500 allows Power to take the points lead back. Ericsson is trailing now 431 to 422 points. Joseph Newgarden's in there with 399, 393 for Scott Dixon. Pato O'Ward in there with 385. Those are the guys really with probably the best chances for winning, but you never know. There's still a little ways to go. Alex Palou is 6th, Scott McLaughlin 7th. Alexander Rossi was 8th. We'll tell you about that in IndyCar news. Felix Rosenquist, Colton Herta complete the top 10 in points. Rookie points continue to be led by Christian Lundgaard. Now a little bit of breathing room, 248 to 221 for David Malukas. Callum Ilot's in there with 166. Devlin DiFrancesco, 151. Kyle Kirkwood, 133. Tatiana Calderon's season may be done. They're having a hard time with sponsorship and getting that third car out on the track. She's stuck at 58. Then the Xfinity Series took to the Indy road course. The man who's now really kind of the undisputed king of road courses, at least in the Xfinity Series, stepped up with another win. AJ Allmendinger dominated. Led 42 of the 62 laps. It's his third win of 2022, all of them on road courses. He's also won 4 of the last 5 road course races, and I think this was his 9th road course win in the Xfinity Series and all.
Correct.
Moonlighter Alex Bowman, he didn't have anything for him, even though you would have thought he might have, but nope, didn't have anything for him. He finished a second.
He was the only car that could keep him in sight the entire race.
That's really about it. You're right. Justin Allgaier third, Moonlighter Ross Chastain, Moonlighter Chase Briscoe, Riley Earp, Sam Mayer, Ty Gibbs, Austin Hill, Noah Gragson making up your top 10. Now, Ty Gibbs still the 1 seed for the playoffs. He's got 4 wins. But now he's got 3 drivers with 3 wins right behind him. Those are Allmendinger, Allgaier, and Gragson. Josh Berry, Austin Hill have 2 wins. Brandon Jones has 1, so they're all locked in to the playoffs. Those in on points: Sam Mayer, Riley Earps, Daniel Emmerich. Landon Castle slips up above Ryan Sieg. Sieg, bad day. He holds, though, a 50-point advantage over Sheldon Creed for that 12th and final playoff spot. Just a couple more races left here. Even though that points gap between 12th and 13th is narrowing, it's still just a little too much for me to say that anybody without a surprise win is going to jump in.
Yep.
That brings us to Sunday. Formula One, Formula E got underway right about the same time. Formula E ended first. We'll go there. Lucas Degrassi claims second in race 1, breaks through to win race number 2 of the weekend, trailed by the Brit Jake Dennis. Better day for Nick DeVries. He finishes third. Rounding out the top 10, Stoffel Van Dorn, Antonio Felix da Costa, Sebastian Buemi, Robin Fry, and Sam Bird. Sergio Sette Camara. Nice little run for him in the Penske Dragon car, which you want to talk about a team that's having a bad year. Good grief. And Pascal Wehrlein. After those 2 races, Stoffel Van Dorn's points lead is up to 36 over Mitch Evans, 185 to 149. Eduardo Matara with 144, and with only 2 races left in the Formula E season, those are really the only drivers with a chance at the title, so we'll just leave it there. Over in the team standings, Mercedes is in the lead, 291 points to 255 for Rocket Venturi. Diaz Tequita with 244. Those are really the only ones with a realistic shot at the title, so we're not going to worry about the rest of them. We'll give you the full rundown in a couple of weeks after they have finished their year. Then to Formula One. They were running in Hungary, the Hungarian Grand Prix. It looked like it was going to be Ferrari's Charles Leclerc, who might finally get the monkey off his back. And then his pit crew called him in just before the midway point of the race and chose to go with hard compound tires. It took Leclerc all of 2 laps to report back that the tires were, and we edit here, horrible. That's not what he said over the team radio. I'll just let you know that. Caused them to have to bring him back in late. They went all the way from hard to soft compound tires. It did allow him to finish 6th, but ruined any chance for him to claim the win. The winner was, no surprise here, Max Verstappen. We heard that before a couple of times this year.
Shocker.
Yeah, I know. Lewis Hamilton was 2nd. Pole sitter George Russell 3rd. Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, Leclerc, Lando Norris, Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon, Sebastian Vettel in 10th. With the win, 258 to 178. That's the lead that Verstappen has over Leclerc, 1st to 2nd. Sergio Perez is up to 173. George Russell at 158. Carlos Sainz 156. Lewis Hamilton with 146. Then in 7th place, you drop all the way down to Lando Norris, has 76 points, 58 for Esteban Ocon, Valtteri Bottas 46, and then you got Fernando Alonso with 41 in 10th. Red Bull expanding out their Constructors' Cup lead to Ferrari. It is now a 431 to 334 advantage. Mercedes is actually creeping up. It doesn't appear that Red Bull is going to be top for the championship, but 2nd place might be up for grabs. Ferrari 334, Mercedes 304. Okay. Then you go all the way down to the battle for 4th. There ain't no battle for 3rd. I'll tell you that right now. It's 2nd and 3rd between Mercedes and Ferrari. And then you go all the way from 304 to 99 for Alpine, 95 for McLaren. Alfa Romeo's got 51. Haas F1 with 34. AlphaTauri has 27. Aston Martin's got 20. Williams remains in the basement with a wonderful 3.
Oof.
Yeah. Tyler Reddick seemed like he was going to be cruising to an easy win in the Cup Series at the Indy Road Course. Then we got a late race caution for multiple cars spinning out and put the race into overtime. On the restart, Ross Chastain blasted down the front straight, knew he had overshot turn 1, so he uses an access road to get back on course. And when he did, he was battling for the lead. But that was a no-no. We're going to detail that in the news. Let's just say that Reddick did get by him, and he ends up going on to claim the win. Officially, this is not the way that they came across the start-finish line if you were watching and then turned the television off or the radio off. This is the official finish. Reddick wins, Austin Cindric 2nd, Harrison Burton 3rd, Todd Gilliland, Bubba Wallace, Joey Logano, AJ Allmendinger, Michael McDowell, Cole Custer, and Chris Buescher in your top 10. Again, that's official. No major shakeup in the standings. Chase Elliott still leads with 4 wins. You got 2 wins each for Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, William Byron, now Tyler Reddick, and Denny Hamlin. Single-time winners, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe and Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch, of course, sitting out once again because of his concussion symptoms. Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. are in on points. MTJ up 96 points on Kevin Harvick for that 16th and final slot. It's going to take a win. Otherwise, these are your playoff guys. And then finally, we head out west to Seattle, the NHRA finals at the Northwest Nationals. Top Fuel, Tony Schumacher took on Brittany Force. That's right, Tony Schumacher. Last week, we talked about how the majority ownership of Don Schumacher Racing was actually turned over. Mm-hmm. And in the very next week, that same weekend, Tony Schumacher turns around and wins. Mm-hmm. Way to go. Schumacher was quicker off the light. Brittany Force lost her engine. It was all Schumacher for the win. A run of 3.977 at 251.34. Seemed rather slow to you. That's because his engine was beginning to let go, too, by the time he hit the finish line. This is Schumacher's first win of the year, but it adds to a total number that now stands at a pretty ripe 86. Congratulations to Tony. Funny car came down to a duel between J.R. Todd and Robert Hight. Hight with the quicker reaction time. It paid off on the other end as Todd was reeling him in, but he just ran out of track. Hight's ET of 3.975 was only 3/1000ths ahead of Todd at a speed of 319.98 miles per hour. It's his 6th win of 2022, 59th win of his career. And Pro Stock wraps up our NHRA recap. Troy Coughlin taking on Erica Enders for the winner's trophy known as the Wally. Talk about that a little bit more in an hour and a half or so. Enders quicker off the light, but Coughlin begins to chase her down, edges her at the finish line. A run of 6.638 seconds at 208.68 miles per hour. 1/10,000ths the margin of victory there. It's his first win of 2022, his first Pro Stock win of his career. Congratulations to Troy.
And then the CRN challenge we had at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
I'd say you probably edged me. I'll be honest with you. We had a great time, though.
Oh, it was fantastic. Gosh, it was fantastic.
Got out there about 2:30. We thought we were the last two in line. It turns out we were in a class of, what, about 6 to 8?
I think, yeah, 8. It may have been 10.
8 to 10, maybe. And it was kind of strange. The differences between the experience that we had at Talladega and the experience that we had in Atlanta, we spent, 20 to 30 minutes sitting in a quote-unquote classroom at Talladega, kind of going over the processes.
May have been on the up end, may have been 45, I'd say at worst.
For those of us who neglected to tune in last week to find out what was going on, what exactly are you guys talking about?
We went to a second driving experience. Mm-hmm. Last year, about a year and a half ago, we went to, it was the Richard Petty driving experience at Talladega.
Yep.
Like I said, at that, we probably spent like 30, 45 minutes inside a classroom, and then we got strapped into the cars. But they had told us everything. Mm-hmm. You know, they leaned into the car, and they kind of gave us some pointers and tips. And then once they buttoned up the car, it was all us for 5 minutes, which was about 5 laps.
Best case scenario.
Yeah. And because that was our base package, we had a chip limiter that was automatically installed in the car. It limited both of us to about 150 miles an hour.
It was because of the engine package that they have in these cars. It was about 5,000 RPMs where the chip was.
So I had a little printout that said I had hit 150.3 miles per hour, I think is what it was.
Yeah, I think mine was 154. Something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were right there, and if he and I had been on the track, I would have easily been able to draft him because it's Talladega. Then you go to Atlanta, and Atlanta does have the new super speedway rules, but this is the Buck Baker Seat Time Racing School. Vastly different.
And vastly deceptive.
Yeah, that's true. We'll get to the deceptive part in a minute. But vastly different in the fact that once everybody was there and got signed in and, you know, did all the waivers and all that kind of stuff, which, by the way, we had to sign a Goodyear tire waiver.
That was a first.
That was a new one.
That was a first, yeah.
So the guy that gives us our primer, if you will, said, I don't usually do this part of it, but here we go. And it was like he was mentally trying to check off in his head what he had heard everybody else do. So we're not sure he got everything, but he did a nice job. Then we go out there, and this is a 2-seater. And these are older cars. It was Tony Stewart era Pontiac Home Depot number 20. Mm-hmm. Mark Martin number 6.
Yeah, it was a Mark Martin number 6. Actually, not Mark Martin number 6.
Oh, it's number 6 Ford Fusion, and I automatically think Mark Martin when I say number 6.
Actually, it was when they was in a bunch of transition of a bunch of drivers drove the 6 car. I think it was actually Trevor Bain.
Okay. And
Performance plus motor oil, 6 scheme.
And then you had the Dodge Charger with the number 22 of Ward Burton, which that was kind of cool to see that. And they also had a truck, which
it was
kind of surprised me.
It was a old what it was.
Ford
It was
F-150.
Yeah, the old Bob Brevac racing truck.
Yeah. So pretty cool. So I ended up getting the number 6. Unfortunately, I didn't get the old Tony Stewart car. You got the number 22.
Mm-hmm.
And we had bought the 12-lap package. So we go out after we had sat in our classroom. We go out, and I'm the first one on the track of the two of us. And my instructor's the same guy that did our classroom teaching, and he's basically kind of showing me the proper line that they would like us to go around Atlanta. And they've got little neon orange tape on the track in certain spots as well to kind of help.
Note to self, don't drive over them.
No, doesn't help.
No.
After a lap and a half, he tells me to back off, pulls into the pits. He said, okay, you good? I'm good with what you did. You hit this perfectly. You did this. Maybe you could do this a little bit better. He climbs out of the car, buttons everything up. Boom, I'm off on my own. Okay. Well, I blame this on driver error because I'm not the racer. He is. So I could come off a turn 4 and I could go through that dog leg and I'd hit it perfect every time. But for some reason, the way that I entered turn 1, I always ended up pushing up.
I did it for 1 lap. It was after I missed turn 1 entry point in the wall by about a foot.
See, I was never that high. I drifted up. I was straddling that bottom line, the bottom racing line. I was straddling between the bottom line and the middle line. But when I started drifting up and I started getting towards straddling the marks on the track between the middle line and the top line, I'm like, okay, so I hit the accelerator. I'd tap back off the accelerator instead of trying to turn in harder just because, it seemed like the proper thing to do to just kind of steer as much with my accelerator as I did with the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So there were times when I was able to nail 5,500, almost 6,000 RPM, but I couldn't maintain that. And there were times when I saw it as low as 4,250 in the turns. So we figured that I was edging about 160.
It was roughly about 160, yeah. But
he went faster.
The car that I was in, the way the seat was set up, the top apex arch of the steering wheel had my tachometer blocked. So I couldn't see the tach or nothing. I'm going, just cross your fingers and listen. If you hit the chip, you hit the chip. If you don't, you don't. So the guy that got in my car, he seen me lean up and look down and look up. He said, what are you doing? I said, I can't see the tach, so I'm trying to line the bottom of the tach up to where the 6,000 mark is. Because the very first question I asked him, I said, where does this chip hit in this car? He looked at me, he said, how'd you know to ask that? I said, I know what I'm doing. He said, it's 6,200. I went, ooh, okay. I went, ooh, all right. He said, but you know how these tachs are. They'll hit. He said, they may be off by 400, 500, 600 RPMs. I said, oh, I know too well. I said, the cars we drove at Talladega make me very, very mad because they say, oh, it's 5,000 and the chip hits at 4,500.
Right.
And you're going, go down the backstretch. All right. Steve makes the lap and a half, 2 laps.
Mm-hmm.
He's only in my car 1 lap.
Yep. He knew that you knew what you were doing right off.
I made 1 full lap. We come off of turn 2. He points it down. Because when I'm getting ready to fire the car up on pit road, he said, let's keep it about 4,000. He said, I'm not going to be buckled in the seat. And I just looked over. Okay. I come up through the gears, hitting the gears, get to 4th gear, and it's there going. I'm going, this car may be a little quicker than I thought it was. That hits the word deceptive.
Yeah.
He points me down to the bottom. He says, and I knock it out of gear, and I start pumping the brakes just to get to where the car slow down easier. He said, how'd you know how to do that? I said, it's rule of thumb.
Standard. Double check, make sure the brakes work.
I told him, I said, my brother-in-law is a truck series competitor and drives an ARCA. He said, that explains it. And he snapped his finger, and I'm laughing, shaking my head in the car. I got to stop. He said, dude, you know what you're doing. Have fun. That's all he said to me. And then immediately the grin behind the face shield went bright. I went, here we go. John, this is the first time I've ever had this happen to me.
Uh-oh.
Ever. Third lap. And I done gotten a little rhythm here now.
And he and I are about, what, half a lap away from each other?
Half a lap,
just the way that we started.
The way we come out, about a half a lap.
Yeah.
Well, I come off starting lap 4, completing lap 3. I come through the dog leg and look at the start-finish line. The flagman is leaned over the flag stand giving me the slow down signal. I have yet to hit the rev limiter. And I went, no. I kept on going. Well, the next lap that I started, because I knew there was not an official time being kept, so I'm counting in my mind 1,001, 1,002, counted it off. And by the time I crossed the start-finish line, I just had said 1,033. And you're doing the rule of thumb equation to figure out what an approximate lap speed is, lap time is. It was approximately about 164, 165. But when you haul off in the corners, you're going like, ooh.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little better than I thought it was.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're just joining us, we're talking about the racing experience at
Buck Baker's Seat Time Racing School at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yeah. Which you can do.
You two got to go and have fun with.
You were invited.
Well, yeah.
If
Mother Nature decided to interfere.
If Mother Nature hadn't interfered, you would have been there with us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is, like Richard Petty does it at certain tracks. Buck Baker does it at certain tracks. Atlanta, Charlotte, Bristol, and Rockingham, which Rockingham might be our next one if we do this again. I say if. How about when we do this again? Rockingham might be our next one.
It's either going to be that, for me personally, I'm in agreement with you on that one. It's either that one or it's either going to be Charlotte at night.
That could be cool. We'll see.
Or the little trip up I-81 to that little town called Bristol, Tennessee.
The other odd thing was I actually got an extra lap than what I paid for because I was given the checkered flag, and we were told, don't slow down until you get off of turn number 2 and then back off the accelerator and drift down onto the apron and roll around the apron and then come into the pits. Well, it turned out that one of the other people was being trained, and the trainer told that guy to go down onto the apron at the same time that I was catching him through turns 1 and 2. So
about that.
Yeah. So Matt ends up, by this point in time, because I've backed off, he's easily caught me. So I now have to figure out whether I'm going to jam on the brakes or go around this guy, and I'm not going to jam on the brakes because I'm catching this kid way too quick. So I end up getting back up and making sure that I'm in the lower lane. Matt ends up right behind me going, make your move, Steve, make your move.
I'm talking to myself going, I'm going in turn 1, and I see the back of Steve's car. I'm going, all right, here we go. I'm going, there's another one in front of him.
Uh-huh.
John, I downshifted to keep from rear ending him. And I'm going, I'm thinking.
I mean, it could have been a 3-car wreck amongst the three of us.
It was about to be a 3-wide move down the back stretch in Atlanta is what it was about to be.
And that's kind of what it ended up being.
Yeah.
So, but we had a great time. It was a lot of fun.
We will be going back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When we come back, okay, so Matt won that, which shouldn't be a surprise. He's the racer of the two of us, okay? But I'd like to think that I acquitted myself pretty nicely.
You did. Except when I got out of the car, I looked, Steve's got bandages on his hand, holding it, going.
Yeah. You can see it right there if you're looking at our CRN Live. Apparently, when I climbed into the car, I hit it up against something and I cut myself open. So I'm literally, and it's on my shift hand, so I'm literally driving down and I'm looking, and every time I'm, turning in the corners, I can see blood pooled up on my hand, and I'm like, well, this is nice. But hey, either way, it was a blast. We had a good time.
It was.
It's a very different experience, and there's at least one other kind of school out there that does this as well, I think.
Was the NASCAR racing experience, which is basically Petty, and the Buck Baker Seat Time Racing School. Those are the only two.
Okay. So, take a look at them and see if that's an opportunity that you think you might like to do. Go and check it out. It's a lot of fun. When we come back, we got to take a break. We will run down this weekend's on-track action and get into the news. You're listening to CRN.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back.
With approved credit, see dealer for details.
Fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Well, last weekend was very, very busy. This weekend going to be quiet in comparison. We start with the Xfinity Series running the New Holland 250 at Michigan Speedway. Airs on USA and MRN Radio. 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. And then tomorrow, the Cup Series. They run at Michigan as well. It's the Firekeepers Casino 400. Airs on USA and MRN Radio beginning 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. Starting right about the same time, but likely ending beforehand. Indycar. They're running the second ever Music City Grand Prix at Nashville. It's an 11-turn, 2.17-mile-long street course that we're going to detail a little bit more for you in the news. NBC has that coverage 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. So Formula E, Formula One, and the NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series are all off. We said we'd get back to it. Let's get back to it. This Ross Chastain situation. Chastain wanting to keep his car clean on that late restart heading into turn one. He admitted he flew down the front straight and he realized that he wasn't going to be able to stay on the racetrack if he took turn one. So he ran past it to the access road. He rejoined the race there. As turn one was going in, he was in what, fourth, fifth at best?
Yeah, it was like fourth or fifth.
By the time he rejoined, he was side by side with Tyler Reddick running first and second. Oops. Realizing that, he said he was going to just go ahead and try it and let NASCAR decide his fate. His fate is a Formula One 30-second penalty. NASCAR officials apparently said that they were going to institute that during the drivers' meeting. It's the first time I've ever heard of NASCAR giving a time penalty, though.
That's the first one I've heard of that, too.
Time penalty drops Chastain from second place all the way back to 27th place. And Chastain wasn't the only driver to get a 30-second penalty. Apparently, they also gave one to Austin Dillon for shortcutting the course as well. He's credited with finishing in 30th. Now, I get the whole shortcutting. I mean, Formula One's got it, Indycar's got it, NASCAR's got it. And the whole idea was if you give the spot or spots back, then you won't get penalized. Obviously, Ross Chastain didn't because he crossed the line in second place. Mm-hmm. Apparently, Austin Dillon did as well. I wasn't paying as close of attention to Austin as I was to Ross Chastain in the whole replay thing. Again, we were racing at Atlanta between Matt and myself. Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly where Austin Dillon cut the course, but either way, that's what these two drivers did. 30-second penalty seems a little on the steep side, but I guess that's them trying to ensure that you don't do it again?
I guess so. But all the more the reason to get rid of the Indy road course and get back on the oval.
And more and more drivers are saying that.
Yeah, they're getting a little bit louder for that one.
Yeah. So
I haven't heard this much negative feedback on a course in many, many, many years.
I agree. Last Saturday morning, right after we got off the air, news coming down that Eric Jones and Petty GMS Racing had come to official terms on a multi-year extension. Jones going to stay in the 43 for the foreseeable future. Jones joined the team for the 2021 season. Since then has racked up 7 top 10 finishes. That's this year alone. He sits 18th in the standings. He'll be sticking with Petty as the team merged with GMS Racing. But he'll have a new teammate. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Ty Dillon has been told after this year he will be out of the 42. The team has not hinted as to who will replace Dillon. Now, obviously, we could speculate all we want.
It seems like the rumor mill and the rumors are pointing their finger at Noah Gragson a little bit stronger and the rumors are getting a little bit louder.
Okay, we shall see. Speaking of rumors and speculation about where he might end up, it's Kyle Busch. He, though, remains this pending free agent. Nothing seems to be imminent with his current team, Joe Gibbs Racing. And again, while rumor and speculation run wild, nothing seems to be real happening in any kind of massive form on that front. What Busch does know is after spending last Saturday morning taking a picture with many of the past winners of the races at Indianapolis and then talking to the media, he says that it's something of a money situation. He knows that the money that he's making this year is not going to be what he makes next year. Quote, "You talk about what you want, and I think you're insinuating that I'm asking for the sky on salary or something like that, and I've already admitted that I'm willing to make concessions. I feel like the market is different than what it was years ago, and I'm willing to race for under my market value," or whatever you think your market value is, Kyle. Then he added, quote, "You got to have sponsorship in this sport to go forward. It's not as simple as being a basketball player and being Michael Jordan or LeBron James and being a really good player and then the team losing a sponsor and then saying, okay, Michael, LeBron, we got to let you go. We can't afford you." But the thing about it is, Joe Gibbs Racing is a good enough team to where they could pull a Rick Hendrick if they chose to.
Yeah, because we know Toyota's got the money. They can do that.
But nothing has happened there, and that continues to lead to a very large amount of speculation. We talked about this last week. A lot of speculation about him seemingly going to Stewart-Haas Racing and taking the 41. Kevin Harvick, the elder statesman over at Stewart-Haas Racing, said that he would actually welcome Kyle to the team. Added, quote, "There's no way Kyle Busch doesn't have a lot of options. He literally could rebuild an organization if somebody took a chance."
I'll say this. The quotes that Kevin Harvick keeps saying about this are really, 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 really cryptic.
They are.
Very cryptic.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But something I saw last night that came from somebody in the media.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I'm going to leave him unnamed. Me personally, I'm kind of on the fence with him because he's hit, he's missed.
Okay.
He's dead on, spot off. It could go either way. Apparently, there's another team that has surfaced in the Kyle Busch sweepstakes.
I'm not surprised.
This one kind of caught me off guard.
Oh, okay.
Matt Collick.
Ooh. Yeah, I could see Matt Collig wanting that.
And kids, we know Matt Collig is not afraid to spend money.
No, he is not. Well,
And his brand that he's got is still exploding throughout the nation.
Yeah, I agree. That'll be fun to watch. Kyle and his family, his wife Samantha and son Braxton, happened to be in Minnesota on Thursday. If you're asking, why are you saying that they're talking about them happening to be in the Mall of America? Well, that's because they were in the Mall of America at the exact time that a shooting took place in one of the stores in the Mall of America. See, why were they there? Braxton had been in and won a youth race the night before in that area, and then instead of just heading on down the road, they chose to wait a little while, go to the largest mall in the United States, ride the roller coasters. Yes, there are more than one inside the Mall of America, before they left and make their way to Michigan for this weekend's NASCAR action. Apparently, though, the part of the mall that they were in was nowhere near, we understand, it was the Nike store that the shooting took place in. Folks, if you are shooting people over the latest Air Jordan, you're an idiot.
Shocker.
Either way, it's a pair of shoes. I don't care whether it's Air Jordans or what. It's shoes. It's not worth shooting people over. You people are morons. Kyle Busch's brother, Kurt, as we noted, missed the last two races suffering from a concussion that he sustained during a qualifying accident at Pocono. Had to miss Pocono. He had to miss last weekend at Indy, the road course, due to not being cleared by NASCAR. And that, unfortunately for Kurt, continues this weekend. Physicians still not satisfied that he's ready to return to racing just yet. And that means that the number 45 gets yet another round of the youngster Ty Gibbs behind the wheel. I'll save my comments. A driver making his debut this weekend at Michigan in the Cup Series, which, by the way, is something kind of seemed like foreshadowing of some things to come, is Austin Hill. Hill's set to pull double duty this weekend. He's going to run the Xfinity Series ride today, obviously. Tomorrow, he gets into a third Richard Childress Racing entry, number 33, Bennett Transportation and Logistics entry. Now, keep in mind, Hill's in only his first year with Richard Childress Racing. He joined their Xfinity program after running the Camping World Truck Series the prior 4 years before that. He's all of 28 years old, so he's actually a little bit on the older side for finally getting a Cup Series debut. But he has paid his dues, there's no doubt about it. He won his debut race with Richard Childress Racing in Xfinity at Daytona in February, so he's in the playoffs, but he is considered, as you noted, the leading candidate to replace Tyler Reddick in the 8 when Reddick leaves after the 2023 season. Would they expand to 3 cars for next year just to get him up to the Cup Series early?
That's a hard one for me to say, personally. I could see more of a third car for that 7-race limit than a third for a full-time car. Okay. Personally.
Let him do some double duty and keep running in the Xfinity Series to get that extra experience.
Yep.
You might remember the Front Row Motorsports, just like Joe Gibbs Racing did at Pocono, had been slapped with penalties. Front Row Motorsports decided they were going to appeal it. Yeah, now they've said, nah, we're going to drop that appeal. So the 100 driver and team motor point penalties take effect immediately, as does the 4-race suspension for crew chief Blake Harris. Should McDowell qualify for the playoffs, not outside the realm of possibility. He's got wins at Daytona, and guess what the last regular season race is? That's right, it's Daytona. But should he qualify for the postseason, which he hasn't yet, he will start with a 10-point deficit, all due to that illegal modification of the front clip. Then we get back to Stewart-Haas Racing. No, this has nothing to do with drivers. The leadership underwent a shakeup this past week. We can now call him the now former president of Stewart-Haas Racing, Brett Frood, resigned from the organization. He's been named the new commissioner of the NLL. What is that? It's the National Lacrosse League. Yeah, he's the president of it now.
Hey.
Yeah, he'll remain with Stewart-Haas Racing in an executive advisor role and chairman of the board for all of Tony Stewart's racing entities, from tracks to teams and series that he owns, but he's not going to be day-to-day and hands-on. Brian McKinley now moves up into the role of chief commercial officer. Greg Zipadelli becomes the new chief competition officer for SHR. Joe Custer, who was the co-president of the organization, now becomes the sole president at Stewart-Haas Racing. If the name Custer sounds familiar, it should. Remember the driver Cole?
Yeah.
Frood, meanwhile, is kind of going back to his roots. Seems he played lacrosse most of his life, and even while attending Brown University, he helped them win 2 Ivy League titles and make an NCAA Final Four appearance in 1994. He's been coaching on and off in lacrosse since then, and now gets his chance to be president of an entire league.
Oh, I forgot a twist on that rumor mill stuff. This same scenario has Almirola staying in the 10 car for one more season.
Mm-hmm.
And has Custer going to can't believe I'm saying this. Rick Ware.
Oh. Ouch.
Talk about a demotion.
Be a massive demotion. When we come back, unfortunately, some sad news from the Cup Series world. We'll talk about that and get into some Xfinity Series news, all of that. And don't forget, about an hour from now, we've got the first of 2 straight weekends of interviews as we talk about the NHRA. Stick around. You're listening to CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, and producer John Myers all here. We wrap up Cup Series news with some sad news. Passing of Buddy Arrington. Veteran of 25 years at the top level of NASCAR, the Martinsville, Virginia native made 560 starts between 1963 and 1988. He never really did have major backing, ran as an independent who never really claimed to win, but he did score top 10s in 103 of those 560 starts. Has a rather dubious distinction of having the second most career starts without a win in NASCAR's history, but he did twice finish top 10 in final points, 1978 and 1982. John will like this. He was a Mopar man. He ran Chryslers or Plymouths, really, until his final seasons when the company stopped supporting NASCAR racers, so he had to switch. He drove old Richard Petty cars even then. Mm-hmm. Arrington is actually the last Cup driver to compete in a Chrysler product until they re-entered the sport in 2001. He ran Chrysler Imperials in 1984 and 1985. One of those actually sits not too far away from us in our home base here at the flagship station of CRN. It's at the International Motorsports Hall of Fame. After that, not only would he buy things like Richard Petty's cars, he actually bought one of Bill Elliott's old Ford Thunderbirds, soldiered on with it through the 1988 season. That was his final year. He passed away in his native Martinsville, Virginia, Tuesday. Cause not given. Buddy Arrington, 84 years old. Our thoughts and prayers out to his friends and family. To the Xfinity Series, where Brett Moffitt and Our Motorsports have decided we're not together anymore. They're going their separate ways. It leaves Moffitt, of all people, 2018 Camping World Truck Series title winner, in search of a ride. Moffitt has made 80 starts for Our Motorsports in the number 02 Chevy Camaro, racked up 21 top 10 finishes, but he couldn't claim a win. The team states they're looking for and will announce soon a replacement driver. That guy over there has got himself a whole setup. Sure, he wouldn't be all that upset about going and racing Xfinity. Just noting.
Nope.
After the Indy road course, Moffitt told media, quote, "This is it. This is it. It's hard. It's obviously not an ideal situation to what I planned on. I've had a lot of great experiences with Our Motorsports, Chris Our, and the entire Our family, given me a lot of opportunities. Again, since he's got a title and he's won races at the Truck Series level, you'd think he'd be able to find a ride at either Xfinity or the Truck Series.
I don't see any reason why he shouldn't.
Is it
Personally.
too late in the year?
I
don't think so.
Not for one off here, one off there.
I mean, truth be told, if I'm, say, Mike Harmon,
I could see that one.
you could do a lot worse than bringing Brett Moffitt in, Mike, to find out what you got going on with those cars.
True.
Really, otherwise, no Camping World Truck Series news. There is some NASCAR news to talk about. In a loose form in this way, North Wilkesboro Speedway officially welcomed back racing and fans earlier this week. Tuesday night, it was a sellout show. God, it was so cool to see this. Zoll and a plan to usher out the old and prepare for the new. Part of that includes Dale Earnhardt Jr. Jr. announced that he's going to pull out a Sundrop-sponsored late model to race in the Cars Tour event that's scheduled for August the 31st and will feature the famed number 3 on the side. Earnhardt Jr. has been heavily involved in getting the track's revival started, and this month is their racetrack revival, where they're going to have racing on the old asphalt surface, then they're going to tear it up, then they're going to race on the dirt surface underneath it for a few weeks, and then over the winter, start the repaving of the track, along with performing a whole lot of other renovations and improvements to the old North Wilkesboro Speedway, because they want to bring some level of NASCAR back.
I could see it first with ease. Worst case scenario, an ARCA national race there next year.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case.
It wouldn't surprise me if they did an ARCA Trucks doubleheader.
You read my mind exactly what I was about to say.
Once you start talking
Trucks,
Xfinity,
possibly.
then we're talking a little bit looser, because Xfinity, especially this year and last year, has not strayed much from the Cup Series. They've accompanied Cup Series on almost every weekend.
Right.
So I'm not so positive that there's an opening there, but schedules for 2023 haven't been made yet.
And I would expect to see them by the end of the month, honestly.
Probably. I'm sure they're in pencil. They're just not in pen yet.
Yeah, but it was... with me being going a couple years ago, going to the grounds of it and just standing on top of that old hillside in Wilkes County and just standing there and then looking at a drone video of how it looked with a crowd there and the cars filling the parking lots, it was just like, man, that looks good.
Yeah.
Man, that looks good.
It's good stuff. Glad to have them back.
And the little bit of stuff they done to the track just to get it ready,
Yeah.
it's spruced up nicely.
Yep. They're going to turn this into something real nice. Also, our thoughts and our prayers go out to former Motor Racing Network announcer Eli Gold. He is now obviously more famous for being the football play-by-play man for the Alabama Crimson Tide. He's going to miss the first half of this football season to tend to health issues that have not been detailed. He's now 68. Gold, he's kind of a broadcaster's broadcaster. Not only does he work for Alabama and formerly MRN, but he's called basketball, hockey with the Birmingham Squadron and Bulls and on the NBA and NHL levels. And at one time, he called games for the Birmingham Barons baseball team as well. While the 2014 Alabama Sports Hall of Famer is out, Chris Stewart will be the fill-in for the Crimson Tide broadcasts. Gold said he has a contract through 2023 with the Alabama Crimson Tide and Learfield Communications, but he recently told AL.com that he plans to stay with the University of Alabama well beyond that. We wish Eli all the best as he recovers.
Absolutely.
To the NHRA 2021 NHRA Rookie of the Year, Dallas Glenn got some much-needed support when Rad Torque Systems signed on as a primary sponsor of his Pro Stock car ride. Partnership was extended. Surprisingly, it was announced just before qualifying last weekend at the Northwest Nationals, which was appropriate since it's Glenn's home track. Glenn is sitting 5th in Pro Stock car points, as we noted. I don't think we actually ran down the points, now that I say that. But
I could see that being one of the Tim Dalen moments. Put these on, boys. We got ourselves a sponsor.
there you go. After the Northwest Nationals, more spots for the countdown for the championship have been filled. In Top Fuel, Brittany Force clinched her spot. In Funny Car, Matt Hagan and Ron Capps locked themselves in. Aaron Stanfield is now locked in the Pro Stock car division. There are only 3 more races before the countdown to the championship gets underway. And then there's this. Oh, by the way, I should have actually put this in the Xfinity Series news, so I apologize. Let's get back to it. Midwestern supermarket chain Hy-Vee. We've been talking about them a lot here recently. They sponsored both races of the doubleheader weekend at Iowa for the IndyCar series not that long ago.
Yep.
Well, they did a one-race deal with JD Motorsports and driver Bailey Curry for Indianapolis last weekend, and they liked what they saw out of the number 4 Camaro, so they've signed on as a sponsor for 6 more races through the end of the year. The first of those is this weekend in Michigan. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know exactly how far the Hy-Vee supermarket region is. I could see them being in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
The other races, Watkins Glen, that's New York, maybe. Darlington, we've been to Darlington. We know they don't have a store there.
Yeah.
Kansas, possible. Texas, doubtful. Phoenix, almost impossible. But hey, maybe Hy-Vee is looking at a massive expansion. I don't know.
I don't know. Crazy. You're talking about Xfinity. The quick update. They're qualifying right now, and already, not even 10 cars in, 3 cars have not posted a time. 1 car has crashed.
Gosh.
Jordan Anderson, before he even took the green, he spun and backed into the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So he will be a D in the queue.
Oops. How many people are entered?
41.
Somebody's going home, boys and girls.
Yep.
And we know one of them already. To the IndyCar series, where we have actually a fairly decent amount of news here, so this will probably get us into hour number 2. But let's start with what we talked about when he won the race. Alexander Rossi seemed to have kind of a fire lit under his hindquarters when he realized he was not going to be with Andretti Autosport anymore. He is moving next year, as we have talked about. And yeah, he had a lot to celebrate regarding the win at the Indy Road Course, but it was kind of sobered by getting a penalty. He got penalized 20 driver points and 20 team points and $25,000 due to a post-race technical inspection revealing a violation, a weight issue. Now, usually when you think weight issue, you think, oh, yeah, they made the car lighter. No, they actually didn't. See if you can follow this, boys and girls.
Is it like me? Did he have one too many cheeseburgers?
Negative, Ghost Rider. This one's going to puzzle you.
Mm-hmm. IndyCar has a rule, 14.4.1.1, which says the minimum weight shall include the car in ready-to-compete condition excluding driver equivalency weight, fuel, and drink bottle content. It gets even deeper. Rule 14.4.1.1.1 claims this is why they hit the penalty. Minimum weight for road street course events will be 1,700 pounds, which the car apparently did meet. So why the penalty, you ask? Well, according to IndyCar president Jay Fry, quote, from a technical perspective, the way they achieved the weight is not allowed. To meet minimum weight, the drink bottle and its contents were used as car ballast, which is not permitted, and that's why the team is being fined and penalized. The car was not found to be below weight, however. If it had been the case, Rossi would have been DQ'd. Instead, again, 20 driver points and 20 team points, so it dropped him officially from 8th to 9th in points.
I saw how... Spare yourself, John. I see you thinking. I saw the number of how far the car was overweight. You want to take a shot?
Sure. 64 ounces.
I'm going to go even less. I'm going to say a pound, maybe a pound and a half tops.
This very bottle that I hold in my hand is 16.9 fluid ounces.
That was my secondary guess.
The car was 40 ounces. 40 ounces overweight.
But again, it's all in the distribution. Okay.
Give me a break.
I don't know.
This one puzzles me worse than why we throw a caution flag at Texas in the All-Star race when the winning driver is less than 100 yards from the start-finish line. Because we have a car scrape the wall and it knocks a paint chip off the back wall.
Yeah.
Carry on.
I don't have explanations. 14.1.1.1.
Yeah. That one's worse than Park Ferrum of Formula One.
Yeah.
You can't look at my car, $25,000 fine for looking at your car. Give me a break.
Hey, you want to get more confused?
Sure. Enlighten me.
How about the ongoing Alex Palou Chip Ganassi racing lawsuit saga?
Hey.
The driver's legal team is seeking to move the suit out of Indiana court and into federal court. According to Racer.com, they talked to a lawyer familiar with IndyCar. He told Racer.com that there are two reasons that the driver's lawyers would like to do this. Number one, well, Palou is a Spanish native who's being sued in Ganassi's home state, so they want to move it in hopes of eliminating any possible partiality. Secondly, it slows the process down. The reason he did it in a local Indiana court is Ganassi was likely seeking a fast resolution, which can happen quicker on the local level than at the federal level because, let's face it, they're overworked. And when was the last time you saw the federal government do anything quickly other than tax you? The motion to move showed up on Monday, but as of this morning has not been ruled on. So much for moving quickly on the local level. Then there's Rinus VeeKay. Ladies and gentlemen, silly season is in full force. Rinus VeeKay opened up his own negotiating window as of Monday of this week. Ed Carpenter Racing had said previously and pretty much all year long they wanted to keep VeeKay in 2023 and beyond, but had a clause in his current contract that allowed him to begin negotiating with other teams effectively as of August 1st. Carpenter was one option, obviously. VeeKay had hired a manager, tasked him with finding the best opportunities for him. He's all of 21 years old. It didn't take long, as other negotiations we've been talking about, because VeeKay and Ed Carpenter Racing came to terms on a long-term extension. It was announced just yesterday. VeeKay, get this, VeeKay announced it first, and then Ed Carpenter Racing backed it up with their own announcement. This will come into play later when we talk about F1 news.
Keep that in mind.
Yep. His deal and Callum Ilot's deal with Juncos Hollinger Racing came even though this Alex Palou situation means that a pretty good car, the 10 car over at Chip Ganassi Racing, could be open. They went ahead and locked in their futures, which I would rather have that proverbial bird in the hand than the two that are in the bush, because I don't know if I can catch them both. I've got the one in the hand. Like I was asked a question earlier on this week of, I'm proverbially going to hand John $6,000 right now.
Which would be great.
Hey,
so you
new
got
headlight.
Proverbially, you got $6,000 in your hand. I've got a quarter. If you call it right, I'll take that $6,000 away and I'll give you $60,000. But if you call it wrong, I keep the $60,000 and I take the $6,000 that I just gave you. What are you doing?
I'm calling.
You're going to try for the 60.
It doesn't matter. I went in with nothing, and if I lose, I get nothing. So I'm still breaking
That's the
even.
difference between John and me. You're going to put $6,000 in my hand, and I've got a 50-50 chance at 60. Sorry, I'm taking the 6 and I'm walking. But that's me.
Yep.
But then I love casinos.
See, if I win more than $100 at a table or a slot machine in Vegas or in Mississippi, I'm leaving. Oh, well, anyway.
There's a right way to do that, too.
Yes, technically. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and take this break. When we come back, Peretta Autosport is running this weekend. They did not run the Indy 500, said that they were going to actually concentrate on trying to run multiple races towards the end of the year. This weekend is one of them, and they have some financial backing. We'll detail that. We'll talk about some changes to the Nashville track. Subtle, but they're there, and for the drivers, they are very, very important. And you're used to the black sidewall tires and the red sidewall tires that Firestone brings for IndyCar.
There's another color.
Red is not going to be there this weekend. We'll tell you about the color when we come back, right here on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Mountain. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. If you missed hour 1, you missed a lot. What the heck were you doing? We've been on the air for an hour. We talk about it every weekend, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time start. Please.
Dreaming of Atlanta and the racing experience.
Oh, is that what you were doing?
That's what I was doing.
Okay. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson. You just heard the voice of one producer, John Myers. Welcome back. Glad you're feeling better, brother. Peretta Autosport, as we talked about, they've secured a sponsor for this weekend's event, Music City Grand Prix at Nashville. They have signed on Acumatica Cloud ERP. It's a cloud-based company, in case you hadn't got the whole Acumatica Cloud side of it. They signed a one race deal with the team and driver Simona Di Silvestro. This is the car is a cooperative effort between Peretta and the aforementioned Ed Carpenter Racing. Should be a pretty good car. The question is how good is she and how good is the team?
I think they're going to be okay.
I think you're probably right. As for the Nashville Grand Prix, the city of Nashville and the race promoters worked together to make some changes to the track for year number 2 to eliminate the traffic jams. I did use that term very, very purposefully. Based upon driver input, they're moving the restart zone. It's now going to come between turns 8 and 9. In other words, on a long straightaway as opposed to where it was last year between turns 11 and 1, which kind of was creating a massive problem there because there were drivers that were kind of getting a really good run, but that's not what anyone would call the widest part of the track. Now the restart is going across the Korean Veterans Bridge. That was where the race started last year. It'll start and restart there this year, give them a little bit more of a straight line and a little bit wider area of the track to be able to do it. Also, the drivers said that they didn't like turn 5. It had a bump in the middle of it that several drivers complained almost sent them airborne. So Nashville officials worked and they repaved that section of the track so it's flattened out. They've narrowed turn 9 a little bit. It's 50 feet wide. You could still probably go 3 wide through there, but I wouldn't go much more than that. This, by the way, was done kind of for money reasons. It allowed the city of Nashville to put a little more room for hospitality suites. Meanwhile, the apex for turn 11 is 6 feet wider. That's not quite a full lane, but it might help. Something else new this week is something we mentioned several weeks ago, the use of a new Firestone tire. This was a tire that they actually used during the pit stop challenge the week before the Indy 500. Instead of black and red, John, you said that the color was going to be
green.
And he's right. Green striped tires, partially made from a new sustainable natural rubber coming from the, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I'm going to say it this way anyway, Guayali shrub. Apparently, the shrub takes less harvesting than traditional rubber sources, according to Firestone, the tire company. As opposed to, therefore, the traditional reds, the greens, as they are called, will be this weekend's alternate tire.
So it's a more eco-friendly tire.
I think it's mainly just easier to harvest because the shrub is easier to grow.
Again, more eco-friendly.
Okay, we'll go with that. More safety enhancements coming to NASCAR for 2023. They've redesigned the cockpit head surround, comprised of carbon fiber and foam. It was designed based upon information from the crashes since the aero screen has been introduced to IndyCar back in 2020. Now, the aero screen prompted some of the drivers to have their seats mounted a little bit higher to ensure an unobstructed view for them, technically over the bar of the aero screen. Oops. So, the new for 2023 seats will have higher mounts for the head and neck restraint or Hans devices, so that will ensure that the helmet or the Hans won't lift up over the driver's head in rear or side impact. Series officials allow as much as 4 inches of movement in driver's seats based upon G-forces. Here's my question. Why in the world are we even allowing them to have their helmets above the aero screen, which, think of a Formula One car with the halo bar, and all they've done is added, effectively, a windshield. Why are you allowing the helmet to be above the halo?
Maybe because they're relying too much on the roll hoop to block it.
Way too much.
They're relying way too much on the roll hoop, one.
Let's take you back to the Alfa Romeo accident that we talked about earlier this week where the car flipped over in its hood, and guess what happened to the roll hoop? It got sheared off.
Okay, and then secondly, whoever said that won't allow the Hans to lift up over the driver's head. Whoever wrote that you put those details in there with, how can the Hans lift up when it's strapped under your shoulder straps? That's a little puzzling.
Mm-hmm. By the way, the base for that story, Indycar.com. Just letting you know.
I need to. God rest his soul, but where's Robin Miller when you need him?
I know, no kidding. And by the way, you could be excused if you didn't know this, but thinking about all the different little caucuses and meeting groups that the U.S. Congress has, kind of in retrospect, it doesn't surprise me that there is a Congressional Motorsports Caucus. It's chaired by the House of Representatives members. That means Democrats have control of it. It's led by Mike Thompson of California. The vice chairman is a Florida Republican, Bill Posey. The caucus is meant to be a bipartisan group dedicated to supporting common legislation that's relevant to all forms of motorsports in the United States. Interesting to note, they did talk to 2 drivers this week. One from NASCAR, Cup Series driver Ross Chastain, who's from Florida, and Indycar driver Scott McLaughlin, who hails from Australia. Okay. The main topic was the recently proposed Motorsports Fairness and Permanency Act. No, I'm not going to get into details of that, but it is something that NASCAR, IMSA, IndyCar, and NHRA officials have all been in full support of to help out facilities in total. Now, what does that kind of mean? Well, it's an act that would make the current 7-year act, in effect, a permanent one, helping investment in motorsports entertainment and complexes and racetracks all around the country, all sizes, regardless of series, being it national or local. Chastain McLaughlin spoke about the positive contributions of motorsports what motorsports brings to communities all around the U.S., and talked about their own experiences of the current state of motorsports, not only in the United States, but all around the world. So, again, I don't know what, in the end, this might do. It does appear that maybe some federal tax money, in other words, John's money, my money, Matt's money, your money, could go to some racetracks, which might not be the worst thing in the world, because, let's face it, the federal government has sure frittered away money in a lot worse things.
I was going to say, I wouldn't mind it going to a racetrack so much as to someone sitting at home not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Or somebody that went and got a liberal arts degree and is hoping that the federal government excuses their student loan debt.
That's another touchy subject for me.
Yeah.
We're and don't get me wrong, anything that benefits sports and motorsports in general, because as I've said before, sports, motorsports, things like that, that's what we look at for an escape from reality.
Absolutely.
But we're talking about this stuff with people that have way more important things that they need to be worried about instead of a motorsports protection and fairness and permanency, whatever you want to do, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, act.
This is one of those things that should not, whether it will or not, I don't know, but it should not take up a whole lot of Congress's time. I mean, this thing's been in effect for 7 years. We didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
It hasn't really affected our lives in an overtly negative way, certainly. I'm not going to say that it hasn't been positive for some local pockets that we haven't necessarily heard of here on this show. I'm sure that it has. This should be effectively, hey, we want to make this permanent, yay, nay. Rubber stamp it, move on. Because we're a government, the United States, we the people, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Remember? That's the way it's supposed to be. We, the government, are spending a whole heck of a lot more than what we bring in. And think about how much we bring in. In tax revenue in this country, we're bringing in about $3 trillion. That's a number you can't enter on a regular calculator. It's got way too many zeros. But for tax revenue, the federal government brings in $3 trillion annually, but somehow they can't figure out how to stay under that number when it comes to spending. They want to spend 4+ every year. That's what they need to be working on. Enough politics. Mm-hmm. Back to racing and over to Formula One. If you're looking for silly season actuals instead of speculation like in the Cup Series with Kyle Busch or Alex Palou, we need to look at Formula One. Last week, we noted Sebastian Vettel informed everybody that at the end of the 2022 season, he's retiring. It created an open seat at Aston Martin, one that did not stay empty long. Nope. Aston Martin struck real fast, and in the process, hurt a rival. They nabbed Fernando Alonso from Alpine, and next year, he will go and race for Aston Martin. Turned out, however, Alonso, making the surprisingly quick move to sign with Aston Martin, solved a problem of having 3 drivers for 2 seats, because Alpine said that they were looking for a place for young Oscar Piastri. Piastri, you may have heard us talk about him, but we haven't gone into a whole lot of detail. But here's a refresher. He's a 21-year-old native of Australia who this year is Alpine's reserve driver. He's also the reigning champion in Formula 2. He won that title in his rookie season last year. And in the role of reserve driver, Alpine had put Piastri through a very rigid training regimen in order to prepare him to take a seat in F1. But Alpine was thinking that they had a chance to re-sign Alonso. So they were going to wait until the summer break to begin negotiations and maybe loan Piastri out for a year to another team. Oh, but wait. The Fernando Alonso thing was the only solid thing that the Formula One silly season had. Here's an Alex Palou-like snag. Piastri says he's not racing for Alpine next year. Piastri said there's no contract with them for 2023. There is a quote from him on the team's press, no quote from him on the team's press release, and he later said Tuesday after the team made their announcement, quote, and remember this quote, "I understand that without my agreement, Alpine F1 have put out a press release late this afternoon that I am driving for them next year. This is wrong. I have not signed a contract with Alpine for 2023. I will not be driving for Alpine next year." Again, remember that. Piastri believes he has a deal in place with another team thought to be, oh, stop me if you've heard this one before, McLaren. McLaren seems to be in on signing everybody. Thing is, this time at least, McLaren hasn't commented yet as to whether it was true that Piastri has signed with them. And on top of that, that suddenly puts Daniel Ricciardo's future with that organization into a big question mark. Alpine has only said this, quote, "We believe we are legally correct in our statement, but we don't have anything further to say." And their announcement that Piastri will drive for them next year remains on social media. As if to add further intrigue into this, McLaren has told Ricciardo that he won't be with their team next year with the intent to replace him with Piastri, according to several sources, including ESPN, reporting that he was told the news that he won't be with them next year right after the Hungarian Grand Prix. That's the way to go into the August break. You get to sit for a month knowing you're out of a ride next year. Thanks for that. The team and the driver are talking about actually ending his contract at the end of the season, in other words, buying him out. Could mean a return to Alpine. It was Renault. He raced for them back in 2019 and 2020, and he would effectively take the place of Fernando Alonso.
Well, with that being said, under the advice of the CRN talent firm that I still sit here with today, I want to make this announcement. First off, for negotiations with Daniel Kvyat, I will be taking the number 26 with me. Under the agreement that I have signed, I will be taking the seat at Alpine.
There you go. I like that.
John's like, huh?
It gets better. Over at Williams, despite having only scored 3 championship points this season, they have decided to keep at least one of their 2 drivers. They've signed Alex Albon to a new multi-year deal. Now, when George Russell left for Mercedes at the end of 2021, and seeing Red Bull release Albon from his contract right about the same time, Williams swooped in. They signed Albon, and he's been the driver that scored all 3 points of the season for Williams. He finished 10th in Australia and 9th in Miami. Whether his teammate will or will not be Nicholas Latifi next year is less certain. It's Latifi's contract year. Dude's only scored 7 championship points in his almost 3 years with the team, and all of those came in just 2 races last year when Williams didn't finish last in points. That was Haas F1. And Albon, in the signing, decided to have a little fun. he noted that Oscar Piastri had sent out his social media message. Let's refresh you on that. This is Piastri's statement, quote, "I understand that without my agreement, Alpine have put out a press release that I am driving for them next year. This is not right. I have not signed a contract with Alpine for 2023. I will not be driving for Alpine next year." Albon decided to take that and spin it his own way. And his own social media statement reads this, quote, "I understand that with my agreement, Williams Racing have put out a press release that I am driving for them next year. This is right. I have signed a contract with Williams for 2023. I will be driving for Williams next year." And let's just say that post was quickly trending quite highly on Twitter.
Well played, Alex. Well played.
That's fantastic. I think it is wonderful. Way to go, Alex Albon. And, you know, this is that classic underdog situation that we talk about a lot. You know, I don't hate Williams. I don't love Williams. It's not like I'm wearing a whole lot of Williams garb during the week or anything like that. But you kind of automatically root for them, kind of like you rooted for the Cubs to win the World Series because they hadn't won it in 108 years. Mm-hmm. They're that lovable loser team you'd like to see win on occasion. I'd kind of like to see Williams do well, and Alex Albon seems to be a good guy, and he certainly has a good sense of humor, though that statement proved it. Haas F1, meanwhile, is kind of trying to figure out their own situation. What do we mean? We'll tell you about it when we come back. You're listening to CRN.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. Fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. I'm Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers with you. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Portions of the show being brought to you by Ox Foundation Solutions, our good friend Michael Hart. If you're anywhere in the state of Alabama and you think, even have a minor suspicion in the back of your head, way back in the back of your head, that you might have a foundation problem, you need to call them or email them and set up an appointment. 205-362-6419 or mike@oxfoundations.com. Why would you do this? Well, Mike has been doing foundation situations pretty much all of his professional career. It's what he does. He's done other stuff. Yeah, he's been in radio as well. But his main thing is dealing with houses and construction and, well, dealing with water situations and foundation. He will work with you on a day and a time that works for you and at no cost and no obligation to you. Again, anywhere in the state of Alabama, come to your house and take a look. He'll go through it inside, outside, under and over, and all around, and make sure. And he'll give you a write-up, which, again, is at no cost and at no obligation to you. And if there is no problem, you guys go your separate ways, and that's that. If there is a problem, he will have it detailed, and he will have an estimate as to how much it'll cost to fix. Now, here's the thing. If there is a problem, that problem ain't going to fix itself. It won't go away just magically because you want it to, because you don't want to spend the money. And I would tell you this. It's probably going to get worse over the course of time. So the quote that he gives you then, you might want to consider going ahead and getting that work done, because Ox Foundation Solutions is going to make that house Ox strong. But there's a trick. If you remember the promo code WEST, WEST, by telling him you heard it right here on CRN, you'll get 15% off of the quote that he just gave you. Can't beat that with a stick. 205-362-6419 or Mike at oxfoundations.com. Again, if you have any thought that your house might have a foundation problem, give him a call, send him an email, get the appointment set up for him to come out and take a look at the house, and make sure that you either do or you don't. I pray you don't, but you never know. All right. Haas F1. One of their seats is locked down. This we know. They have signed Kevin Magnussen to a multi-year deal. They did that before the 2022 season. Now, obviously, he's coming in and he's taken the place of the Russian driver who shall not be named. Okay. And it's actually done quite well. Magnussen has proven himself to be very, very valuable. Why they ever let him go, we don't know, but they wanted to do the two rookie thing last year, and, well, let's face it, the whole Russia invading Ukraine thing blew up in their faces. But then there's Mick Schumacher. Mick Schumacher driving for Haas F1 pretty much on loan from Ferrari. This is his second year. He has finally scored his first championship points just before the break. But he's still a member of the Ferrari Driver Academy and technically could leave whenever he felt like it. Team principal Gunther Steiner said that he and Gene Haas would be talking about their driver situation right now during this August break, but they added that they're not going to make any decisions on their driver lineup until the off-season. If it were me, I'd be talking to Ferrari now and asking, hey, what is your plan for Mick Schumacher? Because if I'm Gunther Steiner or if I'm Gene Haas, I'd like to keep Mick Schumacher. He's a talented young kid.
Yeah.
He's got some rough edges that need to be smoothed out, but he's a talented young kid. And if I can keep him and keep Kevin Magnussen together, because Kevin Magnussen seems to be proving to be a very good mentor.
True. Absolutely, yes.
And if I'm at Ferrari, truth be told, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz?
I don't see either one of them leaving anytime soon.
So why would I shift him to Alfa Romeo? He seems to be doing quite fine over at Haas F1.
The question is Valtteri Bottas getting ready to retire?
Not that he's made any inclination of.
Pretty sure Zhou Guanyu is not going anywhere anytime soon either. He just got called up this year.
If I'm Ferrari, if I'm Mattia Binotto, I see Mick Schumacher in a perfect position to keep learning under Kevin Magnussen, and he's getting competitive now in cars that are much more competitive. I'm not touching that situation. And if I'm Gene Haas or if I'm Gunther Steiner, I'm going to Mattia and I'm going, hey, listen, we'd kind of like to know the status of what you think you're going to do with Mick, because we'd like to keep him next year.
Yeah, I would too.
I'd be using this time right now, not waiting until the end of the year.
I would too.
But again, maybe that's just me. And I don't know. Maybe that's just us.
Don't know.
Again, Gene, call us up. We're here for consulting purposes. We'll be happy to help. Just like we've told IndyCar and NASCAR and several tracks and several teams. We're willing to help you. Sir Lewis Hamilton continues to make moves that are going to set him up after his driving career is over. Don't think that that's pending. It doesn't look like he's retiring anytime too soon. But Hamilton's latest venture is investing in football. American football. not soccer. The 7-time F1 champ did attempt to invest in the Chelsea soccer team in London earlier this year, but his group's bid was unsuccessful. So the new ownership group of the Denver Broncos, the Walton Penner family, if that sounds familiar, Walton, Walmart, just saying. The Walton Penner family ownership group has announced that Hamilton is part of that ownership group. The Walton Penner purchase of the NFL team is going to cost a cool $4.65 billion, that's with a B, dollars. Youch. That's not a small sum of money, do you think?
No, not cheap.
Not at all.
Not cheap.
It, by the way, became effective. It will become effective on Tuesday of this week. Oh, happy birthday to me. What percentage of the team Hamilton ultimately will own has not been divulged, but the Walton Penner Group released a statement that said this, quote, with over 100 race wins, Lewis is considered the most successful F1 driver of all time. His resilient spirit and standard of excellence will be an asset to the ownership group and the Broncos organization. Now, you might wonder why Hamilton, who is a British native who resides year-round pretty much in Monaco, would be interested in choosing the Broncos in Denver, Colorado to invest in. Well, it does appear that he does have a residence in Colorado. And when the investment became official, he posted a picture to social media showing his dog, Roscoe, in Broncos gear and saying, quote, excited to join an incredible group of owners and become part of the Broncos story. Honored to work with a world-class team and to serve as an example of a value of more diverse leadership across all sports. Go ahead.
$6.5 billion.
$4.65 billion. Where does that sit?
I could buy a really, 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 really large racetrack with that, and
Sure.
probably a team or two.
Now, as far as the latest rundown of the most valuable sports franchises, and this is around the world, the Dallas Cowboys remain number one. $5.7 billion is what they are estimated to be worth. The New York Yankees Major League Baseball team, $5.25 billion at number two. The New York Knicks, who haven't won squat in my lifetime, effectively, for some reason are valued at $5 billion in third. Barcelona's soccer team is fourth, $4.76 billion. Real Madrid, another soccer team, $4.75 billion. Based upon the fact that over the last decade they've won 4 NBA championships. The Golden State Warriors are up to number 6, 4.7, just beating out the LA Lakers. NBA team, $4.6 billion. New England Patriots are at number 8, $4.4 billion. New York Giants, $4.3 billion at 9. Bayern Munich Soccer in at number 10, $4.21 billion, and so on down the line. You'd have to go well down the list to find the value of any race operations. I can tell you that. The last we saw, Hendrick Motorsports in NASCAR alone was the most valued at somewhere around, I want to say, 450 to 500 million, and that was a couple of years ago. So I'm going to do a deep dive this week and see if I can't find what the latest values are of race teams, and I'm going to try to do it around the world, but I can't guarantee that I'm going to find that. But we'll try and do something of a deeper dive into that maybe next week.
So does anybody want to bet me that next year, probably starting in 2023, if he continues on in Formula One, let me say that one,
If, okay.
that we see a Walmart logo flying on the silver arrows of Mercedes?
It wouldn't surprise me one single solitary bit. One more note two more notes, I should say, in Formula One. First up, Porsche has made the announcement that they are jumping into Formula One. They will be, if you heard the show last week, once the 2026 season dawns, a 50% owner of Red Bull Racing. Until then, their engine situation, which is believed to be branded with a Porsche logo beginning that next year, 2026, we don't know. It's still a Honda-based engine, but it has no logo on it. But Honda does seem to be warming up to Formula One once again. They've signed an extension to their deal with Red Bull through 2025. They'll continue to provide the organization with technical support. You got to remember, Honda basically sold, probably at a fairly discounted rate, all of the engine building equipment that they had in Europe to Red Bull and put it in their shop. And they've been advising Red Bull on how to work those ever since. If I'm Red Bull, I'm pretty happy with that situation because, hey, they won the driver's title last year. That same driver's quite far out in the driver's points, and they are well ahead in the Constructors' Cup points. Mm-hmm. But yet they're still probably going to change over to Porsche branding. Whether the engine will change, we don't know. But Honda, without Red Bull, if they are indeed warming to get back into Formula One, where are they going to go? That whole Honda McLaren thing is burned.
Yeah, that bridge is incinerated.
So I don't know where they're going to go, but, well, you know, hey, soap operas are soap operas, and that's why we keep up on them. Or some people do. Formula One, meanwhile, has reported that with the COVID pandemic all but over, revenues increased year over year. Through the August break of 2021, when races still had limited crowds, in other words, to this same point last year over this year, revenues have gone up from last year to this year from $501 million to $744 million. Revenues up 49%. Broadcasting and sponsorship revenues are up over 35%, and other revenues have increased more than 200% over that same time. Formula One also reports that they actually have made an operating profit. At this point of the 2021 season, they reported losing $43 million in operating costs. In other words, not just the revenue brought in, but the amount of money that went out to make sure that they did everything. They lost $43 million, but this year, they're reporting a profit of $49 million. We'll keep an eye on that and see if it continues.
All right, I found something, team value.
Okay.
Team values, I found something.
Go for it.
Well, allow this. Whatever.
Welcome to the internet. Ads pop up all the time.
Hendrick Motorsports.
Shocking that they're number one in NASCAR, huh?
This was released in March of 2022, but it shows its 2019 team values.
And maybe the last full year that they've got then.
$315 million.
That's lower than what I thought.
Joe Gibbs, $230 million. Stuart Haas, $165. RCR, $160. Penske, $152. Roush Fenway, $75. The now defunct Chip Ganassi Racing, $63. Front Row Motorsports, $30. And Richard Petty Motorsports, $28.
Which is now Petty GMS. So I would say probably Petty GMS and what had been Chip Ganassi, now Trackhouse Racing, probably have improved.
Substantially.
My question is we haven't seen the success since really that report came out over at Stewart Haas Racing. Wonder if their value has gone up, stayed the same, or slipped. So that's a question as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Time will tell. And let's get into one more bit of news here. Formula E. We noted this in the race recap portion of the show. Sam Bird bringing his Jaguar Racing entry home in 8th place. What we didn't tell you then is that it's actually a little bit more impressive than it may have sounded on the surface. 8th out of 22 cars sounds kind of middling, right? Well, it's actually a little bit more impressive to note. Bird did this after he broke his hand on lap 1 of that race. Bird was the third car in a 3-car game of bumper cars going through a hairpin turn, and unfortunately it broke a bone in his hand. Jaguar released a statement that said, in part, quote, soon after the race, Sam Bird was taken to the hospital for routine checks after sustaining an injury on lap 1. An X-ray revealed that he had a displaced left metacarpal fracture. Okay. Sam will now see a specialist as soon as possible to receive the best possible treatment. His participation in the upcoming Seoul E-Prix will be assessed in the coming days. Even though the hand has another week to heal, Jaguar has decided that Sam will not race in next weekend's season finale doubleheader weekend in Seoul, South Korea. Jaguar noted after the London weekend that they would be reevaluating Bird. The report's apparently not good enough for them, so they have tabbed former Formula E driver Norman Nato. He will drive next weekend.
Interesting.
Well, congratulations to Norman. You never know. Maybe it'll lead to bigger things for him. In the meantime, we need to take a break because when we come back, we're going to be joined by a special guest.
Yep. NHRA crewman and engine specialist for Lex June Racing, Matt Shess, will be joining us at 9:40 sharp. So we're going to break. We'll see you when we get back.
Right here on CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.
Let Central Alabama Community College prepare you to be work ready. Enroll in the 6-week Ready to Work program and learn the skills you need to start a new career. Call 256-378-2024 to enroll. Don't let this free training opportunity pass you by. Call 256-378-2024 today. Get ready to work with Central Alabama Community College's free class. Call 256-378-2024. Central Alabama Community College. Central to you.
Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Back with it here in the final segment of CRN, and we've been teasing this now for 2 weeks, and now week 1 of 2 now starts. Taking the straighter path of life, as you could say, with the NHRA. Joining us now, NHRA crewman and engine specialist. I upgraded you from cylinder head specialist to engine specialist there, Matt. Is NHRA crewman for Lex June Racing, Matt Shess. Excuse me. Dang. Matt, how are you, brother? You there?
Helps if we have that turned on and that turned up.
You there, Matt? Hello? You there?
Hey, Matt, can you hear us? May have a miscommunication somewhere. Let me take a quick look.
Hang on a second. We're going to get this figured out here in just a second.
Alrighty.
Hey, there we go. Oh, it's feedback. Excuse me. Sorry. Oh, okay. I didn't know if it's feedback. Matt, can you hear us, man?
Yes, sir.
Hey, man. Hey, there you are. There you are. How are you this morning, brother?
I cannot complain at all. It's a good day. I'm sitting out front of Never Quit headquarters, just hanging out here.
I got you, man. First question right off the bat. I told you I was going to give you the first one. The life of an NHRA crewman, how intense is it?
That is a really hard question to answer because coming from someone with my background, and my background comes mainly from the military.
Right.
I have a couple of deployments under my belt and stuff like that. It almost matches the intensity of combat.
Oh, wow.
Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way whatsoever. Sure. But the adrenaline rush that happens, and it's not just making the run. either. It's the entire weekend.
Right.
I had my first race back in Bristol, and first off, that's a heck of a race to have your first race at. That's
I agree.
probably in the NASCAR equivalent, that's probably having your first race being Talladega or the Southern 500.
That's a good comparison.
So, yeah, it's nerves.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you constantly are looking at your whole life.
Right.
I mean, I've been involved in motorsports in one way or another since I was about 7 years old, and I've always dreamt of that moment.
Right.
And when I finally crossed the property line into the gate, it's like, all right, here we are. And it was, the pressure and the nerves went away, and the only thing that crept in my mind was execute. And
Gotcha.
from that moment that we crossed through the gate, it was a complete blur. Like, I can hardly remember a whole lot of what took place
Right.
during the weekend because first off, you're so dang busy, but second off, it's all of my heroes that I grew up watching. I mean, John Force was 4 pit spaces over. Like, Mike Salinas was 2 doors down. Sean Legman was right next to us. Like,
Wow.
I remember watching him bracket racing in Chicago. So there's that. And then we go up to the line for the first run on Friday. And seeing the crowd, seeing the people, and knowing that all the eyes are on you and you have to execute, that's on a whole nother level. That's something I'd never experienced before. But once the car fired, and it was just business as usual. Just get the car taken care of, make sure the tires were wiped, make sure everything's buttoned up, nothing's leaking, and send it. So to finally answer your question, it's the most intense thing that I've ever gone through outside of combat.
Gotcha.
Matt, this is Steve West. We appreciate you joining us here. It's Matt Schess, who is a engine specialist over at Lex June Racing in the NHRA. And first of all, thank you for your military service. We certainly appreciate that. Secondly,
I appreciate it.
When it comes through going through a typical weekend, and I know that things are atypical when it comes to, doing this as opposed to doing a 9-to-5 office job, but kind of run us through your process and how you see the weekend going, because as the engine specialist, it's not just like you said, make sure everything's buttoned up, make sure that the engine starts, that nothing's leaking, and then you just let it go and you're done for the weekend. You're actually involved in this after every single run, right?
That is correct. Everything that you see at the track starts where I'm sitting right now. I'm sitting in the front door of Never Quit headquarters here in Brownsburg, Indiana. It starts here. The preparation of the car, going through parts, going through all the tune-up decisions, which is Lex and his wife Gerda, which, by the way, she's the only female crew chief right now in the NHRA. Just wanted to kind of throw that out there. But it starts here. The races are won and lost at the shop. They're not so much won at the track. The work that happens here is literally the tip of the iceberg compared to what you see at the track.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we get to the track, it's simply an extension of that. A race weekend is, think of it as an extended shop day. You know, you're going into the garage, you just work on the car, you do things, you know, you fix little things. It's that just lasting an entire weekend. But in the middle of all that, you also have to race. And that's where things get really intense for me, is you have to get the car ready. And with a case like us, where we're short 4 or 5 crew members as it's averaged across the rest of the professional teams. So while my title might be engine specialist, that's not the only hat I wear.
Right.
I might be checking the wing, the rear wing, making sure that it's adjusted properly. I might be helping Lex check fuel. I might be helping the clutch guy with what he needs to do. I might be helping the bottom end guy putting in a new rack of pistons and connecting rods. So doing that is that's not the only thing that I do.
Gotcha. With you being mainly, as you just said, you wear many other hats, but you mainly focus on the engine and everything. Whether after any given run, whether it be a successful run and no engine major problems or an engine lets go and absolutely grenades, what would be one of the wildest things that you've ever seen and uncovered in an engine after a run?
That I've seen personally? I have not seen it with Lex's team.
Right.
But with another team that I worked with a couple of years ago, I found a feather in the number 2 piston.
A feather. Wow.
A feather.
Wow.
Don't know where it came from. I didn't see any birds when we made a run, but it was. I took the head off, looked at the head, set it on the table, walked back around, looked at all the pistons, and sure enough, there's a feather sitting right there.
Wow.
And the engine seemingly didn't have any problems on that particular run before it?
No, actually, that car ran pretty dang well. So the car that I was working on at the time was not a top fuel car or a funny car. It was something called a fuel altered, which is a class that's been effectively banned from NHRA competition for about 40 years because they're just flat out unpredictable. They're one of the most difficult cars to drive. So that was the car that I was working on, was a fuel altered, and that run we had run I think 5.85 seconds at something like 240 some miles an hour, which was really good for that car. This was a much smaller engine, much smaller supercharger, a lot less clutch, and a much smaller fuel pump.
So apparently the feather brought you good luck.
Apparently it did.
Let's kind of get to you had talked about how you've been interested in this and you've seen these heroes since you were about 7 years old. You go into the military. What's your path to actually getting to the point where you have become a member of an NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series pit crew?
How many hours do you have now?
We don't have quite that long, so try and sum it up like Wikipedia would.
I probably have the least likely path of just about anybody in motorsports. I spent most of my life in the military. I have bounced in and out of racing most of my adult life. And and most of that is because of military obligations. I've always been a fan. I mean, that kind of goes without saying. But when I left the military, I decided that I needed to find something. And I left the military in 2013. I decided that I needed to find my next goal, my next mission, my next thing. And so I decided that I was going to be a storm chaser, of all things. And I was going to, excuse me, there's a train outside.
So we hear.
I was going to go to meteorology school, become a meteorologist, and chase storms for either a living or as a hobby or something of the nature. And then I realized I am absolutely terrible at math. Go figure. And it's not that I didn't try. It's not my thing. Math is not my thing, and meteorology is very much math-based. But when I realized that wasn't probably going to be my thing, I decided to go all in with racing. And I joined the aforementioned team where I found the feather. That got me to know people within the drag racing community. Word got spread around that I was looking for, a little bit more permanent role, and my name wound up in Lex June's pocket, and we had a few conversations over the space of about a week. It turns out that we think a lot alike. We're fairly similar in terms of how we think, how we do things, how we approach racing, and he saw fit to bring me on and start teaching me the ropes.
Nice. I would say probably, for me speaking, knowing that I'm heavily involved, heavily vested, let's say that, in multiple ways through NASCAR, that would probably be the way I would want to get tied in with a team owner or something like that. Could have a couple of conversations. Yeah. Boom, here's your shot. Mm-hmm. But really, now that we see that, you're getting about ready to end. I told you I was going to throw the final question at you.
Gotcha.
All right. Seeing that you and I both talk a lot back and forth dealing with weather situations, whether you got in your respective area or my respective area here in the South. What's more intense? Sitting there watching a 10,000 horsepower top fueler fire off the line, or trailing an EF5?
Oh.
Because I know you've seen one or two.
So that's really hard. That's a really hard question.
Nobody ever said we were going to be easy on you.
That's right.
So, and I appreciate that. Now, the first thing I thought of when you asked that question was the Parkersburg, Iowa EF5 tornado in 2008.
I know what you're talking about.
And that was an insane day. But for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
Now, from a strictly meteorological perspective, being a quote-unquote weather nerd, that's probably my top two moments of my life.
Right.
But again, it's kind of for the wrong reasons because, people's lives are being upended. That's not what you want to see.
Exactly.
And that's the last thing that I want to see.
Right.
But I got to say, being proverbially punched in the chest when two 10,000 horsepower top fuel cars go down the track, that's probably the most exhilarating thing out there.
Wow. Really cool stuff. Matt, we appreciate you taking the time to join us, and you've set us up with your boss, Lex June. He's going to join us here next week, correct?
Absolutely.
Love
he
it.
just reconfirmed with me just about 25 minutes ago.
Excellent.
Sweet. That is absolutely awesome right there.
We appreciate that.
Absolutely,
we appreciate
brother.
you taking the time this morning, and we wish you guys the best of luck throughout the rest of the season, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys take care now.
All right,
We'll
man,
do it.
take care.
Hopefully we'll talk to you again here real soon. Matt Chess, who is a engine specialist for Lex June Racing in the NHRA Top Fuel division. Really, really cool to have him on. We'll talk to Lex June himself next weekend right here on the show. Plus, we've got all of this weekend's news and a recap of the action. Not a whole lot of recapping for next weekend. Again,
Yeah.
It's only Xfinity and Cup. Everybody else is off.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll be able to do a pretty quick recap, and then we'll get right into the news, which, hey, considering the soap operas that we've been dealing with already
Of course.
in IndyCar and Formula One alone, and still the Kyle Busch saga continues of where is he going to be next year. Will any of that be resolved? Tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel. We hope you have a fantastic week. Don't forget about checking us out online. Go to YouTube, go to CRN Live, subscribe there. It's free. You get notifications anytime we're on. Don't forget about our website, crnradio.us. Thank you very much to our producer, John Myers, for taking care of that. We got to get some pictures up from last week on that, which I got to get those to John.
Yeah, I do too.
Y'all have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again next week right here on the Championship Racing Network.
See ya.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.